The mind and brain mind with a capital M, to describe all interiors, all inner content, all inner experience, all subjectivity, right? Your emotional state, your thoughts, your feelings, your dreams, and in the largest sense, you're just, all of this is part of your subjective awareness. And so the brain, capital B, is not subjective. It's not inner experience. It's outer material. It's exterior, not interior. It's objective, not subjective. The physical brain is a thing that has evolved through evolution. So has the mind, but it's not a thing, because it's subjective. These are two fundamental dimensions of all sentient beings. And not knowing this will leave everything you do very broken and very partial in the healing arts and self-development and anything. Because these things correlate and impact each other, but one does not reduce to the other one. So the objective brain is a physical thing. It weighs about 3 pounds. It has weight because it has mass, because it's matter. It's a physical object. So the question is, how much does the inner feeling of love weigh? It's a nonsensical question, because the inner experience of love is not an object. It's part of the inner subjective space. How much do your thoughts that you're thinking right now weigh? They don't have matter or mass. They don't even occupy what the philosopher Alfred North Whitehead called simple location. Nothing subjectively exists in space-time. You can't find it, weigh it, measure it. Everything objectively does. But they're both fundamentally real. Your experience of love is not less real than the hair on your head. It's just a different dimension of who you are. And those things correlate. So this will be a good time to go in this. What the meditative traditions learned was to, and all of the contemplative traditions, that by using the mind to try to change the mind, they could move from lower mind to higher mind. That was the whole desire of the meditative paths. To create not just a sense of wellness, to create a new mind, to access samadhi, pure consciousness, nirvana, moksha, satori. These higher mind states. And they did it by taking that subjective instrument, their mind, and turning it upon itself. Use the mind to look at the mind. That's how that's all meditations. There's basically 4 styles, and they're all basically, they all involve taking the mind and turning it in on the mind, to use it to focus in some way. Whether it's mantra-based or a vipassana-based attending, or whether it's meditation on an object as in Zen meditation, it's all based on learning to focus the mind. Now here's the inherent problem in meditation, because it's one-dimensional. And when you put 1 + 1 together in a nonlinear relationship was we talked about waves meeting in phase. You don't get 1 + 1 = 2. You get something exponentially more powerful because one isn't fighting against the other one. So here's the problem. So when you go to the meditation cushion, whether you were a Zen meditator in a monastery in the 1600s or one of the Buddha's disciples, right, or you were into Christian contemplative prayer, if you went, you brought a mind that you wanted to change. And then you tried to use the thing that you thought wasn't good enough to change the thing that's not good enough. So you tried to use the lower mind to change the lower mind to create a higher mind. Does everybody understand this? Well, what they found was that if you focused over and over and over again in these intensive settings, that's why the prescription was leave your family, move to the forest, where you have zero distraction, where you're fed, you're sheltered, and you sit in a cave and you look at your mind and you practice the techniques over and over and over and over and over again. Right? In the Zen monastery, if you drifted, the Zen master whacked you with a stick to bring your attention back. Here's what is happening. They, and by they I mean when all of the meditative traditions evolved, knew nothing about this neurophysiological component to the human condition. And therefore, they had no way of knowing, for instance, there's gamma burst, shifting into the left prefrontal cortex with Dzogchen advanced meditation techniques after 30 years. They couldn't have known that. And so what I'm suggesting was, because of not knowing that, it limited half of the human condition where they couldn't leverage it into the techniques and the technologies. And so if you use the mind to try to change the mind, here's why this works. The lower brain, we're making this very generic. This is where we can access these deep states, not only move into metamind, but the deep states we'll talk about, the soul awakening, these transcendent awakenings, these unitary states. All of that, we have to get energy into here. Here's where most humans have always lived and continue to do so, in these lower primitive structures that have been in our species since its origin. This part of the brain is evolutionarily much more new than this. This has its grip on our life. And here's the thing, this part of the brain only wants to find and focus on problems because it was designed to find threats in the environment. This is really, really important. Your brain evolved at a time when the environment is full of predators. The lower structures in the brain are doing nothing below the conscious threshold but trying to find what it is that's going to eat you or kill you. And it's filtering your reality first through that filter. What's going to eat me or kill me and make me unsafe? It's filtering reality. That's why we find so many problems in everything, right? Because that lower brain is looking for problems. It's looking for something wrong. What's wrong? You ever watch a deer try to drink by a creek? It goes down and then here's a twig, up. Takes it like 20 times to ever lick a little bit of water and then pop back up and look around. It's looking for what's going to eat me, what's going to kill me. We're wired in the same way. And this is why the average adult cannot focus on a non-threatening stimuli for more than a few seconds. Think about that for a second. If someone came through that door with a gun, you could put every bit of your focused attention on that for the next, you would go without sleep for 3 days if you had to, and you would never lose an extreme level of focus on that environmental stimulus because it was a threat. Am I right? But if I told you to keep focus for 3 days on a flower, you can't do it for 30 seconds. The lower brain won't let you. It's going to start filtering. It's going to start distracting itself. It's going to start trying to find. Because if I'm in a dangerous environment and I'm putting all of my attention on a flower, I am very vulnerable. So it's the brain that we brought to the meditation cushion that does not want to focus on a non-threatening environment. Well, the meditative traditions found that if you continue to focus on a non-threatening environment, you end up having these amazing awakenings. But you have to do it for a really, really long time with a high degree of discipline. The Dalai Lama to this day meditates for 4 hours a day, every day. He's been meditating since he was a child. He's like 80 years old, 4 hours a day. So what happens, for instance, in Zen, if you take a flickering candle flame and you put all of your attention on it, that's called object-based meditation. You put all of your attention, half close your eyes, put your tongue on the roof of your mouth, put all of your attention on that flickering candle flame. What happens is within moments, your lower brain wants to distract you because it wants to scan the environment for what's not safe. And you can't do it. And so the instruction is keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. Look back, keep your attention, keep your attention, keep your attention, keep your attention. If you can keep your attention there long enough, you have to transcend lower brain physiology because the lower brain won't let you keep your attention on a non-threatening stimulus. Is everybody with me? So if you keep that focus long enough, the only way that can happen is by forcing energy into these higher structures of the brain. And these higher structures of the brain, these new evolutionary structures of the brain, are where we have access to higher mind, to the higher stage and the higher states of awakening. So meditation through this relentless focus was prepping the brain. It was bringing the brain by forcing the mind on the mind, the mind on the mind, the mind on the mind to keep focusing, by making it forget about predators, to keep focusing, right? The average human can't meditate for a few seconds without becoming distracted. Because that's how our brain is wired to not let us focus on something that's not threatening. And so we're having to force this through this relentless practice. And it works if you're dedicated enough to do it for 20 years, for 6 hours a day, in a community where you're taught extreme levels of structure and discipline even before you get taught the meditation technique. Because soon or later, you have to transcend the lower brain to be able to maintain that focus. And when you do that, you have prepped that brain for the potential for it to access higher mind, and you have satori or samadhi or these awakenings. Is everybody with me? So what we've been able to do then was, first of all, knowing that, right? Context is biopsychoactive. The meta map changes everything. If we know these are corollary, then we know that if we can move energy into here, we've already prepped this. Right? We don't even try to start the focus until we've prepped the brain to be able to focus. And so we're not using the disturbed, agitated lower mind to try to change itself. We have a technology that can shift brain state in a way that you can actually focus because it's in the part of the brain that's out of survive and into thrive. And so as this is waking up inside of us, as that salutogenesis is moving, as that breath and energy is moving, your brain is increasing in coherence. Energy is building in the higher structures. It's producing the state change that years of meditation can lead to, like that. And when that happens, then we can use object-based meditation. But here's where the real magic of this, the thing that gets our elementary particle physicists very excited, is that the object that we focus on is the very salutogenic mechanism waking the brain up to be able to focus. And when we focus on it, it amplifies it. So the object that we choose is not a passive object like a candle flame. It's an active object that's giving us the ability to do the meditation in the first place. And by doing that, it amplifies the salutogenesis. And as the salutogenesis amplifies, it wakes up more of the brain. That lets us then focus more, to use our mind to focus more. And as we focus more, it amplifies more salutogenesis. And this creates a feedback response, what Stephen calls a singularity. The more you focus on it, the more it amplifies. The more it amplifies, the more it gives you the ability to focus even more on it. The more you focus even more on it, the more it amplifies, the more it gives you the ability to focus even more on it. And it builds and builds and builds and builds, all the while prepping the brain. And now we're also doing object-based meditation, so we're using the mind to focus. And now we put the brain and mind together at exactly the same time. And the final piece is we then bring that attention up into the prefrontal cortex and make that our new object of meditation. And draw that energy up into the higher brain. So the brain and mind are now elevating together. And that's source code meditation. And so what do we do with that? And what we do with that is then pursue the waking up and the growing up path through these 9 summits of transformation, because this opens the door. We have an awakened brain, we have an awakened mind. Where are we going to go? How are we going to become a self-actualized being? How are we going to wake up and grow up from here? And that's what the process is about. Okay? Is everybody with me?